Let me first tell you a little bit about my background as a student and applicant. I am Asian American, I'm half Chinese, half Mongolian, and both of my parents graduated college. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn, it's just my name, Annie Long, if you want to learn more about my work experience and education. For my stats, I had an unweighted GPA of about 3.85. Here are the classes I took freshman year along with my grades. Here are the classes I took sophomore year along with my grades, junior year, and then senior year. So here were my AP scores. Sophomore year, I took AP Computer Science A and I scored a 4. Honestly, I feel like I could have done better on this exam, but I barely studied because I thought I was a lot more prepared than I was. So junior year, I took A Push and AP Stats, and on both exams, I scored a 5. Senior year, I took AP Gov, AP Lit, and AP Calc AB, and on all 3 exams I scored a 5. So in total I scored 5s on 5 exams and I scored a 4 on 1 exam. And I got a 1560 on my SAT. I made a whole separate video on how I got a 1560 on the SAT, but I want to share the one tool that has just changed the game for me when it comes to studying for the SAT, and that is Acely. Thank you Acely for sponsoring this video. If the SAT is not currently relevant to you, feel free to skip to this timestamp, but if you are looking to study for the SAT, boost your score, make sure you lock in and listen to this. Acely is an AI-powered test prep tool founded by 2 Stanford alums that gives you unlimited practice questions through an AI bot. Within the AI chat, the bot not only gives you detailed answer explanations, but you can ask the bot for hints, clarifications, and you get answers to your specific questions. One of my biggest pain points that I had when studying for the SAT, just on my own and with other platforms and resources, is that I couldn't ask specific questions. For me, I personally never had an SAT tutor, like an in-person type person that I hired, but through using Acely, it really does feel like you have a tutor by your side. With my experimentation with a ton of SAT prep tools, I found that Acely is the most affordable and the most effective. With my code Annie10, you'll get $10 off your first month, and every single new user gets a 7-day free trial. So you can check it out and see if you like it or not. I think my favorite thing about Acely that makes it so strong is it allows you to study smart instead of studying hard. Acely will put together all the missed questions you have in one category, and it allows you to review them and make sure that you eventually get them right. Acely also has a performance dashboard where it gathers your most weak areas and most strong areas so you can see exactly what you need to improve on. Also, their diagnostic tests are super short. They're like 20 minutes and you can get a full-on detailed analysis of where you're currently standing with the SAT and what it'll take to boost your score. Something that frustrated me a lot with the SAT process before I started using Acely is I couldn't really target the questions I was getting wrong because all I was doing is sitting down for 2.5 hours and doing the whole practice test. Whereas Acely allows you to only focus on the areas that you're weak in. But if you want to do the whole test, you can also do that as well. All the information you need about Acely is in my description below, but now let's talk about the most interesting part, which is my extracurriculars. So for the rest of this video, I'm just going to be referring to my extracurriculars as ECLs because I cannot say the word extracurricular that many times. It just trips me up. But I genuinely think your ECL list is so important. It shows how productively you use your time in high school, what really mattered to you. And you can write about all these interests you have in your essay, but I feel like the ECL is like your resume. It gives proof to what you're saying in your essays. And my ECLs are ranked from most involved / most impressive to least involved and least impressive. From 9th to 12th grade, I was the founder, content creator, and video editor of Annie Long, my personal development YouTube channel. I published over 425 personal development videos, amassed over 450,000 subscribers, and 45 million total views, and I generated over $150,000 through over 20 brand partnerships. So my YouTube channel actually started when I was 8 years old, so it's been a big part of my application of my journey, honestly, throughout high school, and it was the main thing I focused on. And honestly, I sacrificed a lot of other things in high school to make this work. I barely did any sports in high school. At the beginning of high school, my social life was very minimal. My next work opportunity on my ECL list is being the founder, lead coach, and mentor of the High Performance Student Productivity Virtual Coaching Program. This was a coaching program that I started on my own with a group of other interns. We hosted productivity workshops for over 150 students, taught 2 global 6-week cohorts, and each of them had 13 students, and I had a team of 4 interns, but I was the founder of the coaching program. And we generated over $15K in revenue in the first 6 months. My next ECL is journalism/publication, and this was my Thriving Teens podcast. And I'm gonna stop going through the specific analytics because you guys can see the screenshot right over here. But let me just talk a little bit more about what the process of creating my podcast was like. So I just used a simple podcast mic. It's the Blue Yeti. I think it was less than $150, and I just used my laptop to record and a camera. The power of content creation is so great, even outside of what it looks like on your college resume. I'm not super consistent on my Thriving Teens podcast, so honestly, in retrospect, I would have placed this lower on my extracurricular list. My next activity was an internship I did over my junior year summer, so the summer after junior year. It was at a Series B fintech startup that raised over $115 million. This was an opportunity that honestly took me a lot of effort to get. I was specifically looking for a summer internship in the spring of my junior year. I hopped on 50 networking calls, was just trying to find the best opportunity possible, and I really wanted to intern at somewhere like Carrot Financial, which is the startup I interned at, and it took a lot of push and pull to get this internship, specifically with my parents, because the company wanted to fly me out to LA and wanted me to work in LA for about 10 weeks. But my parents did not want me going to LA alone. So I ended up doing it virtually, but it was still a really great experience. I think it gave me a lot of clarity on what I'd like to do for a future career. So I'm interested in going into the finance space. So I'm currently a PR and advertising major at USC, but I hope to transfer to Marshall, the business school, with an emphasis in finance. The next thing I put on my application is my TikTok. I'm not that consistent on my TikTok, but I just thought it was another impressive thing that I had a lot of metrics on. A big focus I had in my college application, the ECL list, was making sure I had numerical analytics to back up what I'm saying, to give myself credibility. Because anyone can say, oh, I started this club, but it's a lot more credible to say this club had X amount of recurring members. We raised X amount of money. Make sure that you're giving specific measurables that show what an impressive applicant you are. But if you're a freshman or sophomore watching this video, just keep it in mind when you're gonna pick up an extracurricular, already be thinking about what numerical analytics do I want to achieve? What type of numbers am I going to be writing down once I start writing my application? And just stay tuned to the end of this video because I'm going to talk about tips I wish I knew or I wish I could impart to someone else about the college application process. I was the national ambassador for Spark Tank, a student-run immersive startup accelerator. One of the founders actually reached out to me on LinkedIn to get involved with this, and it was really cool to be able to work with the members of Spark Tank because there were other really driven high school students that honestly are probably smarter than me, so it was really cool to be put in that environment. The Creators for Christ Bible Study group was the only religious activity I put on my list. There were so many various things I did for my church and communication opportunities. Honestly, on my UC applications, I did talk a lot more about my church because you have 20 slots for your extracurriculars, but I think on this ECL list, I didn't want to involve that much of my religious background just because I don't know if college is like that or not, or it just wasn't as impressive on paper, even though it was really spiritually fulfilling. But this Creators for Christ group, it was 12 content creators that were all Christian, influential in our respective spaces, and it was an opportunity for us to come together, figure out how can we spread the gospel or just share the light of Jesus with our audiences. And it was super inspiring for me to be a part of, and I think it made a really big impact on our each individual lives and our platforms. My next ECL was a community service one. I was a marketing consultant for a nonprofit called Connect Caribbean Mission. This nonprofit is actually associated with my church, so that's how I got the opportunity. I went on a mission trip to the Dominican Republic, and I wanted to figure out how can we market the impact that is going on in the Dominican Republic for more people to donate to the cause, for more people to go on mission trips. So I started working with the coordinator to create a media kit, to create photography concepts that we could experiment with. I was a student analyst during Morning Brew's course called Business Analytics Accelerator, and I did put this one lower on my list just because I wasn't really creating something, I was more taking part in the course. I was the first high school student to be admitted into the course, but the thing is, I don't even know how hard it was to be admitted. I don't know if maybe I was the only high school student that applied, so maybe that's why, I'm not sure, but it was a really great opportunity. It was a little bit challenging to manage with school, to be honest, and it did feel a little lonesome to be the only high school student because everyone else there was 25 and up, and I didn't really know the ropes of professional working life. So I definitely kind of felt like an imposter most of the time, but it was a good opportunity to push myself out of my comfort zone. My last extracurricular on my list I was just involved in during freshman year. It was a startup incubator called Lean Gap. If you guys are looking for a summer ECL, I definitely recommend Lean Gap. I'm not sponsored by them at all, but I've had such a good experience with them and they were super formative in my high school career, and I'm so glad I did it at the beginning of my high school time. For my USC essays, I actually have a separate video where I read them out loud to you, but if you don't want to watch that video, I'll also have those essays PDFs for free and my link in my description. But let me just give you a quick summary or synopsis of what they are. So my Common App essay was about how doing taxes for my small business with my dad influenced how I approached the American dream and my responsibility as an immigrant's child. In retrospect, I maybe would have tried to pick something that was a little bit more quirky or outside the box, because I think a lot of business owners, a lot of immigrants' children can relate to this narrative, which is a good thing, but I think it might have been too repetitive or not original enough for some admissions officers. But clearly it did resonate with USC. My USC supplemental was about my passion for influencer marketing and my time at Carrot Financial and how that leads to my passion for accounting, because I applied for 2 major choices. My first major choice was PR and advertising, and my second was accounting. What influenced me to apply for accounting was that I was really passionate about finance after my internship at Carrot Financial and wanted to explore that more. But I decided to apply for PR and advertising as my first choice because I felt like my application matched it more, and I felt like my chances of getting into USC would be higher. And I don't know if that's proved true or not. I will just say I got a half-off tuition merit scholarship, and I was interviewed by the communication school that's associated with PR and advertising. So I'm starting to think maybe I wouldn't have gotten my scholarship if I applied as accounting. So maybe everything happens for a reason, but I do intend to transfer into the Marshall School of Business, so wish me luck. So a big aid in my college application process is I actually worked with a former admissions officer, and I paid her like $10,000. It was definitely an investment, but I want to share with you guys what I learned from her for free, because we don't gatekeep here. The first thing I learned that I actually applied was planning out my extracurricular list sophomore year. I don't mean it has to be super detailed, like these are exactly the things I want to do, but I would start just visualizing what narrative do you want to create? What are the type of leadership positions you want to have? I would focus on your core 3, like your top 3 extracurriculars being in different pillars representing different parts of you. I think businesses you founded is valuable, nonprofits you started, leadership positions you had, maybe contests that you were a part of. I think one of my biggest regrets that I had on my application is I wasn't super well-rounded when it comes to where my activities were. A lot of it was social media marketing, a lot of it was entrepreneurship, which is great, but I feel like if I had those 2 pillars and then maybe like an artsy thing, maybe some of the Ivy League schools would have wanted me because I would have been a little bit more quirky. So I think I was very like business minded, a little bit like I'm kind of cookie cutter in a box. I think I definitely could have come off maybe as a little bit more quirky. Max out the number of APs you can take at your school and try to take the hardest classes at your school as long as you can pull out with a B, because schools will evaluate your course rigor by comparing your classes to the available classes at your school. So I gave you guys a list of courses I took. Don't be stressed if you can't take a push if your school doesn't offer it. Just try to take as much as your school offers. During your college interviews, try to talk about as many tangible stories and examples. So whenever you say something like, oh, I like knitting, don't just leave it there. Talk about what are the things you like to knit? How many things have you knit? When has knitting for other people impacted your community? Maybe how much money have you made from your knitting business on Etsy? I would just really make sure that you're qualifying everything you're saying, and make sure that you talk about diverse topics that you did not talk about on your application. One of the mistakes I made during my UPenn college interview is I just sounded like a broken record just talking about my YouTube channel. But if I talked more about like my personal values, the way I'm involved in my church, I think I would have come off as a much more well-rounded and sophisticated applicant. Read model Common App essays to get an idea for what you want to write and what good writing sounds like. So in the link in my description, you guys can download my essay for free, but also there's a ton of YouTube videos about people reading their essays that got them into X school. Try to be involved in your ECLs for as long as possible. College admissions officers want to see longevity and consistency. Obviously, if you're in a club and you really don't align with it, don't stay in it just because you want it to be on your college apps for a long period of time. I think the principle to take from this is only really involve yourself in an extracurricular if you see it being long-term. When asking a teacher for a recommendation letter, bring what's called a brag sheet. Your brag sheet should include your resume, accomplishments you had in that class, and also your future plans, because then your teacher can talk about how they see you doing as a future doctor, future businesswoman, and also reminds your teacher of the accomplishments you've had, because teachers typically have a lot of students, especially if you go to a public school, so you want to make sure you're being respectful of their time and making it as easy for them as possible to write a really good letter for you. The more specific you can get in the why us essay, the better. Anyone can say that a school is a good community, like that applies to almost every college, but not everyone can say there's a specific professor that wrote this book that really impacted me and caused me to pursue marine biology. When you're talking about your why us essay, don't be afraid to list specific courses, specific clubs. Like, just really try to show the school that you've researched them thoroughly and that you've imagined what your life would be like at their school. Make it easy for them to fit you inside their world. Lastly, start working on your college essays as early as possible. Doing stuff last minute really compromises the quality of your work, and I know some people are like, oh, I perform well under pressure, but also there's so many unexpected events that can happen even during the fall of your senior year, like getting sick, a crisis. Just, you want to make sure that you are ready for any emergencies. And for me, I definitely had some hiccups along the way, but because I started my essays really early, I was still able to submit them on time. That's all for today's video. Remember, if you want to boost your SAT score, use my code Annie10 to get $10 off your first month with Acely, and every new user gets a 7-day free trial, so click the link in my description, and I'll see you guys in my next video.